The Immortal Constellation, written by Edith Balogh, translated by Barbara Dunchazi and Edith Simon, read by Edith Simon. Our mission is to give an alternative viewpoint on life in this rapidly evolving moment in time. We feel there are many out there who have been waiting for such a message, which is why we poured our time, energy, and love into this project's manifestation, to aid humanity as well as ourselves in this transformation, to land together in a new, better reality, bathed in the sea of love and eternal unity. If you resonate with this message and would like to support our work, please feel free to share it with your community. Please subscribe, share, and like this video so the YouTube algorithm will suggest it to others interested in this topic. Thank you. Chapter 4. What is life according to the present rules? Quote from Erich Fromm. The fact that millions of people share the same vices does not make these vices virtues. The fact that they share so many errors does not make the errors to be truths. And the fact that millions of people share the same form of mental pathology does not make these people sane. Is there any person on this earth who is not afraid of falling ill, of aging, and ultimately the idea of their life ceasing? How does life take place in humanity's general practical sense? In our experience, after birth, roughly until approximately 20 years of age, we are taught rules which are enforced to teach us the necessary ways of life and proper social behavior. Roles we must commit to and fulfill for the remainder of our lifetime. Every child eagerly awaits reaching adulthood with all its responsibilities and with its total freedom, with no one to oversee their choices and actions. Children feel constrained by the rules they are expected to follow. They are thirsty for a taste of limitless possibility, which they believe adulthood will bring them. So then, 20 years of our life races by, and hooray, we are finally standing in the doorway of independence. We take a deep breath and begin our lives. We begin to create the fundamental building blocks, such as acquiring a job, which will provide sufficient income. We create relationships of various dynamics, widening our communities. Sooner or later, we begin building the closest dynamic of all, the family. Our children will be born, and the following 20 years will be spent attempting to form a life which we hope and anticipate will bring us happiness, that it will be beautiful and provide us with a chance to live and enjoy our youth. Oftentimes for us this does not play out the way we imagined at the start of it all, when we first stumbled into the arena of independence, young, naive, and fearless. Many of us become constrained by careers we ultimately do not enjoy. The pressures of finding and keeping a balance of harmonious relationships strains us, and once a partnership is established, further responsibilities are placed on us to take care of the family and raise our children properly. So the freedom you once conceived at the beginning now bears no resemblance to the reality you have been thrown into. Ever more obstacles, rules, and expectations spring up around us from what we began with. So here we are, looking at the back end of 40 years, and we still have been unable to truly enjoy or experience the world around us, live our lives how we imagined. The next 20 years approaches and not much changes. The expectations and responsibilities are omnipresent, but with the added bonus of our liveliness and youth dwindling away. In retirement years, sure, our circumstances are somewhat lightened. Our children have grown up and begun their own cycle on this search for freedom. There are people who by this time have sufficient financial stability to live comfortably, but with our youthfulness declining, the quality of these experiences often can decline as well. There are many people who reach this age and reach the comfort and stability which allows them to get a taste of the world, to experience all of the things which they know they missed out on during the golden years. But let's be honest, as enjoyable as it still may be, it cannot be compared to what all of it may have felt like when we possessed the vivacity of our 20s. Sure, 60 years seems like a substantial amount of time, but how fast does it pass by really? Those who have reached this age or past it have a full understanding of how insufficient it can really feel. So, how fast does it pass by? Very. Before we have a chance to say stop, those 60 years have come and gone, and we are left to sit and wonder, have I done any of the things I originally wanted? Did I fulfill all of the dreams and goals I conjured up in my mind as a starry-eyed teenager on the brink of this so-called freedom I awaited so impatiently? For most of us, I think we can safely say that the answer would ring a loud, unanimous no. What is the purpose of life? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Albert Einstein. There comes a moment in most people's lives, sooner or later, when they feel that they cannot find their place in the world. They do not see purpose in what they are currently doing or what they have done so far. It is not dependent on how successful someone is, whether in their career or other areas, not to mention those who have never reached success on any of these levels. Most people's lives consist of a continuous search, a search for something which can fill the voids. Oftentimes, they are not aware of what is it they can fill it up with, and this is the reason why many of them end up on the wrong path. This is when the questions come up, such as, who am I? And why am I wandering around for in the world? What is my goal or my task in life which does not constitute of a waste of time? So my question is the following. Who can say with full conviction that this is why we are born and this is the extent of our life's purpose? Did this showcase of trials and tribulations we call our life fulfill its maximum potential? Who can say that they have had enough time to achieve all that they have wished for? Who feels like they have really fulfilled their destiny and, like after a hard day's work or a perfected piece of art, look back at it with satisfaction? Is there a healthy or creative individual in the world who feels they have done everything they desired, and the well of their goals and dreams is all emptied out? That they have fulfilled their potentials to a point where nothing else remains, and like a well-spent afternoon talking over coffee with a friend, contently rise up and take their leave. People generally do not welcome death with open arms. They don't take their leave with the pleased reassurance that they have experienced all that life has to offer and emptied out its treasury of potentials and secrets. Even those who seek death out as a solution are not doing so because they are disenthralled or disinterested. They do so because they are tired. Tired of the constant obstacles, fear, disappointment, and constant battles. Something that by shedding their earthly bodies, they will have the chance of transcending into a better place, while others do not believe anything happens at all. They simply wish the pain and pressure to stop. The lives that we lead are not logical. Or I could say that there is logic present, but it's not life's logic, but that of death's. We go through constant battles with the walls which surround us, while the clock is constantly ticking away. What is the meaning of this earthly career of ours if we cannot actualize nearly any of the desires we set out into life with? If our lives are not being spent acquiring all of the beautiful goals and dreams we once had, then what is the point of it all? Is it just so a person goes through one experience followed by another, the majority of them unpleasant, to ultimately shape and build their character? But what kind of character it is which is carved out this way? The kind which is grossly misled and disordered, possessing false belief systems and priorities, which is no surprise since who we are is formed from the effects of our experiences and our environment. If we are born and raised in an environment of false and distorted beliefs, our character will definitely reflect it. In the present state of life, by the time we get somewhat acquainted with its ways and ourselves, so that we may maneuver through it with some ease, we have run out of time. The Academy of the Soul. Could we say that we are merely traveling through the Academy for the soul, and once our human body expires, as it is designed to be, we shed ourselves off it like an ordinary jacket and simply look for a new one? That in between possessing corporeal vessels, we spend our time floating in a heaven for souls, our earthly bodies playing only a temporary and replaceable role, and are sent here to learn. But if that is the case, what are we here to learn? Who tells us what we need to learn? Everyone always is more than ready to teach us something, to educate and shape us according to the beliefs they think are correct. But what proof is there to be sure that the exact thing they just say is correct among the thousands of others? How can I know what is worth to learn that will have use that will aid or better me? Or will it be the opposite? Could our human life really be, in a sense, the uniforms we wear to attend the Academy of the Soul? Are we really just temporary visitors to this world, like the teenager who attends high school from morning till 3 p.m., at which point they return back home? If that is the case, where is our real home? Is it here or located in an obscure distant there? Better yet, where is the former or the latter? We could continue to dig deeper, which would result only in more questions. The answer, in its most simple form, is that there is no here or there. Everything is located in the same place. Our souls do not travel back and forth from anywhere, simply our point of view alters. In reality, our three-dimensional world, the way we understand it, does not exist because neither height, width, or depth are finite. They have no beginning and they reach into the infinite, into other dimensions. Our material world is placed within another world, which our eyes cannot see. In reality, the way we see everything is solely from our point of view, and this reality could coexist as another simultaneously. Don't simply look, but see. Quote from Erich Fromm. Alienation, as we find it in modern society, is almost total. Man has created a world of man-made things as it never existed before. He has constructed a complicated social machine to administer the technical machine he built. The more powerful and gigantic the forces are which he unleashes, the more powerless he feels himself as a human being. He is owned by his creations and has lost ownership of himself. The way of life, in the way we practice it, has become obsolete. It does not fulfill its purpose, and neither it is functional. The entire era we have lived in up to now is coming to a close. We have to forget the ways of life we have been engaging in, because the new age, which is quickly drawing upon us, runs under completely different laws. The experience you've gained regarding how to get through life so far will not only be unhelpful, but hinder you from being able to participate in the future fully. All of us have to freeze the frame of life, which is continuously playing out, and look around. If you can drown out the outside noise, whether you begin with the whole world and end up at the shorelines of yourself, or observe yourself, the close-knit relationships you share, and the way you look out at the world, it is safe to say that most of us deep down can sense that something has gone horribly wrong. Peel back the layers of the onion, the layers of all the networks and relationships in it. If you look inside yourself, Do you feel truly happy, secure, complete? If you look further at your family, do you see a completely functional, loving dynamic? Or looking even past that, examining the relationships you have, starting with the one you share with yourself, to the people you share your life with, all the way to the state of the entirety of the world. Do you feel a sense of security, freedom, and harmony? The constant fear and doubt in everything that is threatening you, the people you love, and the world at large. If you can sense this, then you may realize that the world is not running on the wavelength of love, but rather fear. Two opposite concepts which will take you into completely different directions. One is a constructive and creative dynamic which clings to unity and life, while the other is detrimental in quality, clinging onto death. Do you think it is right that we follow the framework of the latter rather than the former? If you do not, does the thought ever occur as to why the state of everything is the way it is? And how can you shift this destructive force off its tracks to bring about change? For any transformation to take place, the first step is for every person to gain a fundamental realization of the things which are going adrift and astray. Humanity has to wake up and realize that the lives they lead are not their own. They are not the ones in charge of it. They are not the ones who create the blueprints for it or make the choices to be carried out. People are programmed and driven astray on such a level from the moment of their birth that in actuality, the life they are living bears very little resemblance to them. Yes, they are the ones who have to account for the consequences and responsibilities, but the blueprint was not designed by them. The individual who never stopped to wonder about this concept believes that their life is completely in the firm grasp of their own hands. But this is incorrect. In the state of today's world, actual free will is a foreign concept hidden behind dogmatic illusions. For those who think this concept is important, take some time to think over the consequences and importance of it, to realize that one whose thoughts and beliefs are led by just me, just here, and just now is not just selfish, but also in every meaning of the word, a sin. This attitude takes an antagonistic approach against the laws of humanity as well as the laws of nature itself. An ignorant and indifferent mindset towards important issues is created by a lack of knowledge, a lack of the necessary information, and the inability to interpret the said information properly. My motivation behind the idea I'm trying to convey, and what I hope is the takeaway, is that this lack of knowledge will not suspend our responsibilities. The word responsibilities is most often used towards things and people outside of ourselves, the way we are accountable for our car payments or rearing our children. But do not interpret this responsibility in the same sense. We ourselves are just as much affected when we treat the world with an apathetic attitude. We become victims of our own ignorance and the nearsighted choices we make as a result. We shouldn't wave this off as a philosophical hobby, one regarded less practical or with less importance than our everyday tasks. If we accept the status which comes with human and think we are above all else in nature, we have to behave appropriately. We have to be aware and own up to the responsibilities which come along with that status in order to avoid destructing and destroying whatever nature and life built. The so-called spirituality. If we are looking to attain the knowledge discussed above, we need to look both in the material and immaterial spiritual sciences simultaneously. We need to pool all our knowledge together to find the right direction. Unfortunately, in the majority of the public opinion, the spiritual world is regarded as inane, nonsensical, or to be dealt with in philosophical arenas, never to seep into practical life. I have met individuals who have absolutely no idea what is meant by it, and if I'm brave enough to begin discussing these type of things, I can see it in their eyes that they believe what I'm saying is absurd. Some may even think I have completely lost my marbles, but due to the passion which I retain when talking about it, they refrain from voicing their opinion. Many people are unwilling to pay any attention to things which are intangible or which deviate from traditional concepts. They believe to deal with such things are useless or, at the very least, a hobby and plays no importance in our real world. That it does not help the problems we are faced with every day, so why bother? Many people immediately disregard or fully reject the idea of looking behind our everyday life and asking questions of why things are the way they are. Their logic follows that they have no time to waste wondering about souls, nature's laws, body and mind connections, and such, when they work hard to put all their time and effort into putting food on the table and provide all the necessities of life. When people disregard these types of issues, they do so without knowing what exactly it is they are disregarding. That nothing else is closer to us or can be a greater aid practically in our lives than gaining knowledge of it. Hearing the phrase, "you have to get to know yourself," is enough for people to immediately gesture, "leave me be," or even respond defensively, replying, "I already know myself." Many of these automated responses are acted out without the person ever having paid enough attention to the subject to know how they should or could actually get to know themselves. What do we actually know about ourselves? What do we not? And where does all this lead us? We could ask the very same questions with regards to our knowledge of the world we inhabit. Of course, these types of reactions associated with spirituality is somewhat understandable, considering the current connotations associated with the concept. A sense of responsibility. We must admit that all human history so far, perhaps with the exception of certain primitive societies, has been based on force, the force and power of a prosperous minority over a majority who work hard and enjoy little. Eric Fromm. Previously, I mentioned that people should live in a total awareness of responsibility. This sense of responsibility allows for the basis of behaving in a humane manner. We can only talk about our human rights once we understand and practice our human responsibilities. Before we begin to preach about what our rights are and what we should be allowed, we must be aware of what responsibilities fall on us. In the long term, if people were to be aware of them and would behave accordingly, we would have no need to state what our rights should be, because the two would automatically balance one out. Of course, we can only say this if not just certain people were to behave this way, but the human collective as a whole, including those who are in positions of leadership, as they are largely responsible for the present destructive lives people lead. One of the worst things humans have inherited from generations down is the idea that it is acceptable to have hierarchical classes, such as monarchies and nobility, who are allowed to oppress and rule over others simply because of the positions they were born into. Yes, in nature there are hierarchical levels, but in a very different sense from what we experience, and it does not automatically equal to the rights of ruling. The idea itself that someone can rule over anything or anyone in its own misguides us from the direction of growth, prosperity, and the nature of life itself. There is a sharp difference between ruling and leading. Ruling implies oppression and control, whereas leading implies guidance to a more elevated existence. Leaders' obligations and responsibilities lie with the care, guidance, and help extended towards the general population, and more importantly, those who are in need, to lead towards growth and perpetuate a successful collective existence. On a smaller scale, this should be illustrated in a family dynamic. The parents or parent are considered to be the head of that collective. They should not be appointed as head of the family simply because they are entitled from birth and because others are expected to serve their needs. They are entitled to it because they bear the most responsibility in order to ensure the family unit is kept safe and together. At the same time, everyone else in the family has their own specific roles to ensure that the family works as a harmonious unit. The same framework should be applied to the human family as a whole. In theory, this system is what presently at work, but in practice, this system breaks down because our appointed leaders in place seldom lead with the well-being of the human family in mind, but rather to ensure their place and remain in control while making a profit. It is a strange idea that someone should receive the privilege of ruling a family, a group, or a nation simply as a birthright. It is an idea which is in opposition with the laws of the earth, humans, and that of nature. Each human is a manifestation of life, and no one has the birthright to anything. The only birthright we are given is to live, and to do it as well and with as much collective effort as we can. This right, however, requires within itself consciousness of our own and shared responsibility. We are responsible to live in such a way as to earn our right of living here. This type of life must be ruled in accordance with nature's laws. If someone works against it and lives, operates, or rules by their own laws, they take on a destructive force which dismantles and devastates the present order. It spreads outwards to systematically destroy the fragile balance of sustainability of larger units. To imagine this on a smaller scale, if we would allow someone into our family who wishes to take control over the unit and pays no attention to the previous order and environment, only looking out for personal gain, it would dismantle the harmony of the family and work against their well-being and unity. This type of inherited mentality is completely misguided, and we must understand it as a misconstrued application. It does not matter whether we look back at history or religious teachings. Everything from past eras manifest themselves as examples of hierarchical ruling levels. These forms of society did not operate in a manner which benefited or perpetuated the betterment of the whole. Rather, through discarding the laws which nature operates by, they worked to keep in place their own power and control. They worked towards selfish advancement with a disregard for the consequences. Rulers wielded their power and the people they ruled over as tools to work for them instead of the rulers working for the people, to maintain and multiply their strength. The lust after power and control went unchecked. Because of this, the so-called ruling consisted of a constant battle fought amongst one another. Various heads of nations fought to gain control over other peoples and territories. Therefore, history consists of a constant war waging. From this we can observe that these rulers' true objective was not to maintain the well-being of the many people they had been appointed to rule over. If this was really the case, then they would have been content with looking over much smaller populations and borders, as there would have been more than enough complications to look after even then. To return again to the family, we see relatively little desire or tendency for people to overtake and overpower others' families. That, is because they already have enough problems with their own. This mentality and way of living, unfortunately, was not just present in the people appointed to the highest of positions, but trickled down to and spread among the average person as well. People follow after the examples of those in higher positions and take after their way of behaving. The role of leadership is to lead people, to lead as a positive example. The type of example which, if the masses follow, do not produce criminals and tyrants. We need to help those who need direction and guidance so that they learn to lead themselves and through it lead others, so that the community of guidance widens exponentially. This is what it means to be a leader. Not the perversion and manipulation of the masses, so that they are personally driven to work, fight, and struggle only to create poverty, illness, war for themselves through turning against one another. Until this is what we are occupied with, we have no time to think about what has happened to the fruits of our hard labor. Until people are occupied with hating and fearing one another, fighting with one another, and use all their energy and creativity to work only to perpetuate the state, we have no time to look around and reflect. It may come across as if I'm being reproachful or even condemning, but this is not at all my intention. My outlook is always that whatever is in the past, it's fine where it is. I do not wish to change it, but look only forward. There is no point to spend too much time mourning over or rehashing what has already been. In all certainty, everything happened as it should. In all certainty, every person and event played their rightful role throughout history in order for us to arrive to this very present. We cannot change the past, and we do not have to, only take away and learn from it. My only reason in bringing up the past is to bring attention to it and avoid recreating the same mistakes. To show that changes are necessary if we want our futures to look different. To have the capability of changing them for the better. Everybody have to collectively change to distance ourselves from the ways of the past, and we must be aware what an important role a sense of responsibility plays, both from the point of view of leading as well as living together as a whole. While the majority of us do not necessarily take part in making leadership decisions on a global scale, we may feel we do not have much control in the way of the world it shaped. But we can never forget that the collective consists of each of us. While masses may constitute unaware individuals, which can be led whichever way a present leader wishes, conscious people, on the other hand, create collective units which do not require any leading because their consciousness is already guiding them in the right directions. Now, more than ever, there is a huge requirement for people who are awakened, conscious, and aware, so that they may take on a collective unit which is capable of exerting the kind of force that can make up for those who are somewhat lagging behind, to effect the global collective consciousness. Some may remain ignorant or unable to hear the calling. However, those who are aware and conscious hear it loud and clear and need to act, for not acting on it is ignoring our responsibility. While sometimes we may make up excuses in our minds for why we do not do something, we cannot trick our conscience the same way. We have to learn to listen and work together with it for good things to manifest themselves. We need to see what kind of future consequences our way of thinking and our actions can manifest. Humans are so far the only beings we know of who can be aware and see the long-term consequences our choices and actions have. Because of this, no one can blame or hold someone else responsible for their present situations. No one can know the future. However, we are the ones who form, shape, and bring it into existence. Only our imagination can create limits. Our goals should be to find the possibilities and the directions of change, and to help others to realize it as well. To encourage others to a global mentality, to be aware of their actions, and to build a conscious future. Our future is in our very hands. No matter what present we have inherited, we have the ability to see different directions and the possibility of choosing any of them.